Roundtable series. Okay, and we are so pleased today to welcome the Green Business Partnership and Danny Glazer, who is the Executive Director of the Green Business Partnership, is with us. And they were so gracious to partner and collaborate with us in bringing this roundtable to you. So we are pleased to always have their partnership and their support, and we want to again extend a huge thank you to them. I also feel that I have to say, for those of us in Westchester County, that I hope everyone is doing well after the events of this last week or so, and that life in some ways is returning a little bit to normal, and I hope that no one was too terribly impacted by the storm. The storm, however, does bring to light what we're all here to talk about, and those are solutions for to address the challenges of climate change and opportunities to move ourselves forward to a more resilient future. Today's agenda is, the first hour is essentially presentations and presentation question and answers. We have ConEdison here with us today, and we are very thrilled to have them. They're going to be presenting the New York State Clean Heat Incentives and Tool. And we have Aliki Malarosa, and she's going to do that for us. And then our second presentation, it will be by Dyna Williams, and she's from Comrie Enterprises, and she is going to be presenting the ACE campaign. Following the presentation question and answer, we will have an open discussion. And we will build the agenda for that discussion as we typically do in these roundtables from suggestions from those of you who are attending. So what we'll do at that presentation time, at that 20-minute Q&A time, is ask you if you wouldn't mind dropping into the chat some additional agenda items you might want to suggest. And from there, we build the agenda for the rest of the event. So I was hoping that NYSERDA would be on with us before we got started, because of course our program is in collaboration with NYSERDA. And
we have Scott and Dana.
Oh, we do. I don't see them. Hi, Scott and Dana. Okay, so welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Maria.
Okay, so I'm going to just kick it off then to Aliki and from ConEd, and have her share her screen and begin the presentation. So I'm going to stop sharing, Aliki, if that's okay, and then you should be good to go from there. If you're not, give me a shout out.
Okay, no problem. Let's see. All right. Hi everyone. Can everyone see my screen, or I'm not sure if it's showing. Maria, is my screen up?
Yes, so we see your screen, but we also see your slide sorter. So if you want it to be, there we go. Now we see your screen.
Okay, perfect. Thanks so much for having me, and happy Friday, everyone. So today I wanted to present on the New York State Clean Heat Program, specifically about the Clean Heat calculator that we released for the program, that any applicants who are looking to submit a project application, they can go to this calculator, and it will help them to calculate energy savings, incentives, and do an eligibility check. So just taking a step back, for those of you guys that don't know, New York State has released a clean heat program that is being run by across New York State throughout the various utilities. And what we're really the aim of the program is we're looking to have customers, and it runs the gamut between residential, multifamily, commercial, industrial customers, and we're really looking to electrify existing heating plants. So moving from that gas boiler or oil boiler and installing heat pumps. So that's what this program is about. And, projects that do move the needle and opt to electrify may qualify to get incentives to help them with the installation of the project. So if you are interested in participating in the New York State Clean Heat Program, what I really suggest is going to this website right here. It's the New York State Clean Heat website. You can click the link and it'll take you to a number of the resources that are available for the program use. So first thing, definitely take a look at the New York State Clean Heat Program Manual. This program manual kind of gives you the overview of what the program is, the goals. It will tell you different incentives and what type of heat pumps and applications that the program incentivizes. And what I would also pay attention to is any errata pages that have been issued. Just make sure that you have these two resources available anytime you're looking to submit a project application. The other key items that I suggest anyone who's looking to submit to the New York State Clean Heat Program take a look at, and really the goal and purpose of this presentation is to go over the calculator and user guide that we released about a month and a half ago. So this calculator kind of was born out of, we heard the market. The market was like, we love this program, this New York State Clean Heat Program. We're really excited about it. We have tons of contractors would come up to us and say, we have tons of projects. Customers want to electrify their heating plant, but we're having difficulties, figuring out and calculating what are our savings going to look like, and then B, what the incentive will be. So out of that feedback from the market, what we actually did is we hit the drawing board and we created this clean heat calculator. This is the first version of the calculator, and it basically, and we'll take a look at it. It really is meant to make applying to the program much easier. Right now, the calculator is limited to certain technologies, and we'll go over that in a little bit. But I just wanted to point out that you can access this calculator when you open the link. It's saved under both the ground source heat pump and air source heat pump headers. You can download the calculator itself here, and then you can download the user guide at this link. Definitely download both at the same time. The user guide is super helpful. There's tons of screenshots, and it'll walk you step by step through how to fill out the calculator so you can get, exactly what you need, aka the incentive and the savings. So what exactly is this clean heat calculator? So I mentioned it before. It's an Excel-based tool that's going to calculate your custom energy savings. It's going to tell you what your incentive is based off of.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. So I found some mold
Hi.
Where?
in that closet.
The closet with like
Hi
the one
guys.
that has the sump pump in it. Okay.
So I'm
So
Hi,
what do you
guys.
think
Would
is
you
the best way
mind
to
muting
deal
it?
with that?
Hi,
Well,
I'm
good
sorry.
idea.
Muted me. Hi, I just wanted to make sure everyone, please be sure that you're muted, that your microphones are off when someone's presenting. Thank you so much. And it looks like Aliki somehow is muted herself now. So, okay.
Okay. All
Sorry.
right. So no, that's okay. It's going to tell you what your incentive is, and it's also going to perform a basic eligibility check of your project. So it's going to make sure that any heat pump technologies you're looking to install actually meet the program eligibility requirements. If it doesn't, it's going to tell you why exactly it doesn't meet the program qualifications. So right now, this Excel-based tool is specific for heat pump technologies that serve space heating applications. And it's typically meant for any of the heat pump technologies that fall into the custom category. We call this custom category 4 in our New York State Clean Heat Program manual. And really what that means is it covers the following listed technologies. It's the NEEP listed cold climate single package or mini split heat pumps. It covers larger AHRI rated unitary air-to-air heat pumps. It covers your air source VRFs, and it also covers large closed ground loop heat pumps that have centralized pumping. Again, these are the technologies that are currently available that the calculator is programmed to compute savings for. We are looking to expand this in the future to add additional heat pump technologies like domestic hot water, but that is not currently available in the tool that's been released. So before I go into the calculator, some of you are probably like, okay, great, I want to install a heat pump, but what type of heat pump am I looking at? So a quick way that the program determines what heat pump you're looking to install is through the HRI classification. So what we found is the market, different heat pump manufacturers may call their heat pumps different things. It's never black and white. They may say that, LG may call their heat pump, an air source heat pump, mini split, and then let's say Mitsubishi may call it a VRF. So the way we get around to figuring out what type of heat pump you are looking to install is we rely on HRI classifications. So I recommend that everyone bookmark this link. And if you're looking to submit a heat pump project to us, and you know the make and model of your heat pump, you can go to this link, type in the model number, and download the product rating sheet from HRI. And how you're going to figure out what type of heat pump you have is based off of the certificate. It's going to tell you the test method that the heat pump was classified under. And the important test methods to keep in mind are these ones right here. And why it's so important to understand what your heat pump is one, you're going to need to know that information to insert it into the tool. But two, all of our incentives are based off of the specific heat pump types. So a ground source heat pump will have a different incentive than an air source heat pump. So that's why it's very important that you understand what type of heat pump you're installing on your project. So moving on to the actual calculator. So we said that it calculates energy savings. We said that it calculates incentives. When should we use it? Because there's also the TRM. Some people also want to use their own custom methodology. So generally speaking, we say to use the calculator anytime that your project involves installation of one of the previously mentioned heat pump technologies on the other slide, and those technologies serve a space heating application falling under a category 4 incentive rate. There is a caveat for multifamily. Any type of cold climate air source single package or mini split unit is going to use this calculator. So exceptions to using the calculator. Well, so there are certain circumstances that applicants may choose to use their own custom approach. Here are some of the exceptions to using it. If an applicant has prepared a whole building energy model, you can go ahead and use that energy model. I will say that if you are doing an energy model, make sure that you've checked with the utility that you're putting the project application in with, to make sure that the modeling software that you're using is one of the utility's approved modeling software. Another reason to bypass this calculator is if you're installing a heat pump technology that does not fall into one of the categories that I mentioned previously. The last justification, or another justification rather, for bypassing the calculator altogether is, and we'll see this in a little bit, the calculator right now is programmed with different baseline equipment types that it uses to compare your proposed heat pumps to in order to figure out what the energy savings are. So that could be a baseline like an oil burning boiler, or it could be a gas-fired furnace, for example. If you have a heat pump project that is occurring at an existing facility, and you don't see one of the pre-programmed baseline equipment types don't match what you have currently installed, you can go ahead and bypass the calculator. You don't need to use it. You can submit your own custom approach. Alternatively, you can still use the calculator to compute savings. You would just have to choose a counterfactual baseline, one of the options from the drop-down list. So when you download the calculator from that link, what you're going to see is it's going to open in Excel, and you're going to see that there's multiple tabs. What I want you to keep in mind when you're reviewing this calculator is the color yellow means that it is a user entry tab. Tabs should be completed in the following order. So you see that there's 4 tabs. You're going to have to input data into 3 tabs. And you're going to go from left to right, and that's the order that you're going to complete each tab. When you click on a specific tab, you're going to see that there may be cells. Some cells are going to be in yellow. Some cells are going to be in white. Again, think yellow means user input is required. So you're going to actually go to that cell, and if it's a drop-down menu, you're going to select something from the drop-down. Sometimes it may actually require you to insert a number or something direct from your project application. Anything in white is going to be a locked cell. You're not even going to be able to click on it. These white cells are going to auto-populate based off of the information that you have inputted into the yellow cells. At times, you may see that the calculator is going to conditionally format in red. So what red is meant to signify is that there might be an eligibility issue with your project scope. So some of the eligibility issues that are considered with this calculator and checked off are what type of heat pump application are you using your heat pump for? Is it a heating and cooling application, or is it cooling only? The program is specific for heat pumps that are going to serve either heating and cooling or heating only. We don't incentivize cooling only units. The calculator is also going to check the efficiencies of the heat pumps that you're looking to install. We want to make sure that anything that you install meets or exceeds the local codes. There's also some additional efficiency requirements for certain types of technologies. For example, VRFs, according to the program manual, must have efficiencies that exceed Energy Star. So this calculator is already pre-programmed. As soon as you enter your heat pump's information and specifications, this calculator is going to do a check to make sure that it beats the codes, it beats any additional efficiency requirements that the program has. The last eligibility issue that this calculator checks is whether or not you're providing a heat pump that provides full load heating. Again, the whole goal of the program is we want to move the needle and see heating plants be electrified. So we want to move away from that gas-fired furnace or that oil boiler. So we're really looking for projects that are going to install heat pumps that can cover the entire heating load for the building. And the other thing that I do want to note about the calculator is sometimes you're going to see optional cells. Anything that's optional, you can fill in information. You can choose to, skip it. But it'll be highlighted in gray with text that clearly defines it as optional. When you go through the entire 3 tabs, those 3 yellow tabs, and you fill out anything that is in yellow, you're going to hit the results tab. That's the last tab. And it's going to spit out the energy savings from your project scope. And most importantly for all of you, it's going to tell you what your incentive rate is. I will note that it's going to give you an uncapped incentive. And then if in certain programs, depending on the utility, there may be additional capping requirements. So for example, at ConEdison, we cap incentives at 70% of the total installation cost. So we won't give you an incentive for your heat pumps that exceeds more than 70% of the total heat pump install cost. So that's all going to be fed out in this results tab. So how am I doing on timing? I don't have much time left. Do I have till 3:30, Maria?
Yeah, that's right, Hilaki.
Okay, perfect. All right. So hopefully I'm still sharing my screen.
No, oh,
No?
no, I don't see.
Okay, hold on. Let me see if I can...
You're now
Yeah.
sharing your screen. So
Now I am. Okay. Okay. So now we're in Excel. So this is the Excel-based tool. I just kind of wanted to quickly scroll through the tabs so that you can kind of get a feel for it. So like I said, anything in yellow, user input is required. You're going to go from left to right in order to fill out the tabs. Many of the tabs are going to be drop downs. So you're going to select whatever is applicable to you. And you're going to, this first column, for example, is going to be programmed with any of the heat pump technologies that I mentioned previously. You're going to pick whatever is most applicable to your project type. You can fill out the tag numbers. We're going to need to know quantities. So if, if you're installing 5, 10, you're going to tell us application, cooling and heating, cooling only. And this is what I mean by if I select cooling only, and like I said, cooling only heat pumps are not incentivized through the program. What we expect to see is the row is going to highlight in red. So anytime you see something in red, you know that there's an issue with your project scope. I will note that when a heat pump is deemed ineligible, you can still enter it on this tab. The savings, however, is going to only consider eligible units. So you don't need to worry about, oh, I've already entered my heat pump, it's ineligible. What do I do? Do I have to delete it? No, you don't have to delete it. You can keep it there. The savings and the incentive you're going to get, though, is not going to consider that ineligible unit. Some other things to note, I forgot to mention, sometimes you'll see this, this grayed out hatching pattern. That just means that you don't need to fill out any information into this calculator at all. You can just bypass it altogether. So that is what that means. When you fill out the calculator, you're going to want to make sure that you have the equipment specifications for every single make and model that you're installing, because the calculator asks you for things like, what is its capacity, its rated capacity for heating, for cooling, what's its rated efficiency for heating and cooling. And that's what you're going to plug into this calculator. Some other things that I wanted to show, I talked about baselines. What this calculator does, I mentioned, was it basically compares your heat pump installation to certain pre-programmed baseline system types. Again, these system types are not comprehensive. It's not going to represent every single baseline equipment type that there is, So you have two choices if you're installing a heat pump in an existing building. If you don't see your heating or cooling existing equipment type represented in this dropdown, you can either choose to bypass the calculator altogether, or you can choose a counterfactual baseline and still continue to use the calculator for the purposes of computing savings and an incentive. These are just efficiencies for the unit that you're going to get directly from either the AHRI certificate or the NEEP listing. So definitely recommend that you have those specifications ready when you submit your application. And at the very end, this is where it's going to tell you whether or not your heat pump is eligible. Some of the other tabs, the equipment schedule tab is probably the most involved tab, but if you have the specs in front of you, it's pretty quick to fill out. The other two tabs are very minimal in terms of project information. It's going to ask you things like project location. This tool can be used across New York State. It's got project locations, anywhere from New York City to Poughkeepsie, Rochester, etc. So depending on where you're doing your project location, you're going to select whatever is closest from the dropdown. Similarly, depending on the utility that you're submitting for, you're going to select whoever is appropriate. It's pre-programmed with different building types. So we've got a stock list of building types: offices, assemblies, schools. So you're going to select that type that most closely aligns with your building. There's also a custom option. So if you don't see your building type represented, you can create a custom schedule, and you can tell us by moving over here. You can tell us when the HVAC is on, and just tell us, give us the HVAC schedule and tell us what the set points are. And you can still use this calculator then to compute your energy savings, even if you don't see your building type represented. Some other inputs that you're going to need to fill out that are important: whether or not this is a heat pump installation at an existing facility, new construction, choose that from the dropdown. We also look for information on your building heating and cooling loads. So any projects that do go through the Clean Heat Program, we will ask you to submit the building heating and cooling load calculation. It could be either a manual J or an ASHRAE 183 calculation, and that is an input that is required as well. So some other inputs: just tell us about the heating controls, whether or not there's integrated controls, or if, for example, if you're keeping your boiler, if you've got two separate thermostats, some type of separate control between the boiler and the heat pump. It will also ask about permitting, if you have any information on the permitting. So that could be if you're filling out a Comm Check or a Res Check. And so that's what this section is. And that's basically it for this tab. And then the last tab, that's the summary tab. The only thing that you have to fill in here is the material and labor costs. So with that, I think I'm at time. So I will stop sharing my screen. And thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Aliki. We have one or two questions in the chat, but we're going to hold them until after our next presentation. So we are very excited to have Dyna Williams join us from Comrie Enterprises, and she's going to be talking about her ACE program. And Diana, I hope that you'll be able to screen share. If you're not, just give us a shout out. But I think you have those controls. And here we go. Perfect. So just so that you're aware, we see both your current slide and your slide sorter. If that's a view you want or don't want. So I think maybe click from the beginning. Can you do that? Let's see if that works. From beginning, and you're in slideshow. There you go. Now we're seeing you in slideshow. And you're also muted. You're still muted. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Maria.
Perfect. Okay, I'm going to mute myself now.
Okay, thank you. My name is Dyna Williams, and I am here to tell everyone about the Adopt Clean Energy campaign. But before we do that, I have a little story. So about 20 years ago, a modestly dressed American went to the Bahamas, loved the islands, and decided that he wanted to purchase a piece of property in the Bahamas. He met with a realtor. They went and they saw several different places. And finally, the Americans decided that, on the property he wanted. And he told the realtor what he wanted, which the realtor said, "No, you don't want to buy that property. That property is too expensive, Mr. Gates. You can't afford it." So just something to start our Bill Gates did buy the property, actually. So anyway, Adopt Clean Energy. It's a clean heating and cooling campaign sponsored by NYSERDA. Seems to be stuck, so we will.
So the only advice that I would give is that sometimes if your cursor isn't in the center of your screen, the advanced screen on Slideshare doesn't work.
Okay.
I don't know. That's just from my painful stumbling around.
Okay, I seem to be stuck. So why don't I do this? I'll go back to escape, and my screen seemed to be stuck. Here we are. I'm Dyna Williams from Adopt Clean Energy, and we are going to hope that it works now. Yes. So we are the campaign director for a clean heating and cooling program, and I started a clean heating and cooling program for which the Urban League of Westchester County is the contractor. Comrie and the Urban League created the campaign Adopt Clean Energy for our communities, and the communities that we represent are Mount Vernon and New Rochelle. So who is Adopt Clean Energy? Well, first of all, who is the Urban League of Westchester? The Urban League is probably the largest and oldest civil rights organization in the world, less known as Comrie Enterprises. We are a minority and women-based company out of Mount Vernon, and we have been in the energy business for more than 20 years. Our specialty is identifying financing and resources for property owners and municipalities who need to get energy efficiency or sustainable types of retrofitting. We are also affiliated with several companies, including the Green Business Partnership, which we're a current member, and we are also members of the Business Council of Westchester. So what are our goals? And I guess my screen is so high. Okay, our goals are environmental goals. We want tons of greenhouse gases. That's our primary goal. We have your economic goals. We want to decrease community unemployment by training residents as heat pump installers and recruiting local HVAC firms to install heat pumps. And that goal is very important to us because the pandemic has left many residents in New Rochelle without employment, or they're now underemployed. So in order to spur the economy in New Rochelle, we believe that offering free training, which is part of what we do, will help to spur the economy. We also have health and safety requirements. And of course, one of them is to reduce the incidence of respiratory illnesses. And public awareness requirement is, of course, to get more people in the city of New Rochelle to become involved in energy, sustainability, and of course, to install heat pumps. So here's what our program does. We're going to enroll building owners to transition to heat pumps, and these are all building owners, schools, offices, commercial buildings, homes, apartment buildings, mixed-use buildings. We're referring clients to vetted professional contractors who are vetted and approved by ConEdison and NYSERDA. We're going to identify a financial resource for every level so that for persons who are low income and to persons who are high income, we'll make sure that there's some financing that can satisfy those groups. And we're going to do free installer training in New Rochelle, as I mentioned. We're going to enroll our residents once they get heat pumps, if it's applicable to get heat pump water heaters, and also solar energy to decrease electrification. So here's a comparison of some of what goes on in our cities, our local cities, in terms of the use of fossil fuel. And these are just for the apartment buildings, right? So you see in New Rochelle, the green represents the utility gas. There are lots of people using utility gas. And the purple, I mean, represents utility gas. And there are kerosene, fuel oil, kerosene is represented here in the green, and electricity is in yellow. So we have quite a few residents that we need to reach, quite a few business apartment buildings that we need to reach to convert this really large amount, which is almost more than 70% to heat pumps. So as we compare the cities that we work in,
Hey, Dina?
I'm sorry?
Hey, I'm sorry. I don't know if I missed this, but on the previous slide, did you comment the electrical heating fuel customers? Is that electric resistance or is that assumed to be heat pumps?
No, these are electric resistance.
Okay, got it.
Resistance, 12.3% of New Rochelle residents use electric resistance.
Understood. Thank you.
Sure. So as we compare the cities again, we see that New Rochelle downtown is transforming. People who are in New Rochelle know that it's becoming a very different city than it was maybe 10 years ago. Most of the residents in New Rochelle own their own homes, and on average, residents have more disposable income for spending than, say, Mount Vernon residents, and they're very inviting for new business. Mount Vernon is just on the precipice, I would say, of moving into new development. The city has had some trouble in the last few years, but we have in our city 1,353 commercial industrial properties. And of that number, 538 apartment buildings, 215 are not-for-profit spaces. So there's 600 spaces, excluding residential and not-for-profit space in Mount Vernon. Most Mount Vernon residents live in multifamily building, and there is high unemployment in Mount Vernon. Economic development is slow, and the city right now is not really inviting for new businesses, but we hope that will change. So this is what our website looks like. adoptcleanenergy.earth. And this is what our website, this is the first page of our website that you'll see. And we have all sorts of information about heat pumps. Go back. About heat pumps, how people can get started, what are the financing and installers that are available, resources, news, job training, and frequently asked questions. So we have information about the heat pump options and the heat pump planner, and we have the heat pump planner is on the website that anyone can download. It gives the reader a lot of information about heat pumps and how to plan for heat pumps. We also have a list of what people should expect when they start the process of getting a heat pump. That's on our Getting Started page. And then if you want to learn more about heat pumps, you can click the contact page and you can find out some more information about heat pumps. This is the list of information that you can send to us if you are interested in heat pumps. And it asks the person who's completing the list for enough information so that when we contact them, we can give them information that's customized to them. And this includes people who have commercial buildings as well as single family buildings. So here is a process, right? first thing that someone needs is an energy assessment. The energy assessment will tell the client what shape their building is in, whether they're going to need insulation, what kind of heat pumps they'll need. The heat pumps can be sized properly, so there are all kinds of measurements that are taken to make sure that you're not paying too much for a heat pump that's oversized and you're not wasting energy. If you need energy efficiency, that means insulation so that the air that is conditioned in the winter, that would be warm air in your building, will not escape. And in the summer, it means cold air will not escape. And remember, heat pumps provide heating and cooling. And once the energy efficiency is complete, then the heat pumps can be installed properly. Now, I've put solar here as an optional service because if we really want to reduce the use of electrification and get your ConEdison or your utility bill lower, solar is a great option. Okay, so we work with all kinds of large buildings, residential as well as non-residential building. We provide financing for all income, and the financing in residential building is generally occupant income dependent. There are all sorts of financing available for heat pumps. The financing change regularly. So I'm not going to indicate any numbers here, but the state of New York, utilities, private sector is pouring money into helping New Yorkers move from fossil fuel to heat pump energy. Training that we're offering in both cities, the applicant must be 18 years or older, must be a New Rochelle or Mount Vernon resident. The training is free, it's about 60 hours. And at the time, trainees can earn up to $100,000 if they are over $100,000, if they become experienced and they continue to in this career. Companies are seeking heat pump installers. And that is my presentation. If you need to know more about heat pumps and about adopting energy, that's our website. And we're actually having our New Rochelle launch on Thursday, September 30th at 7 p.m. And for the New Rochelle residents out there, please come and join us. We're going to have heat pump contractors who are going to answer questions, explain things about heat pumps, and tell you their personal experiences with heat pumps and have testimonials from clients. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Diana. We are very appreciative of your time and that great presentation. And the website looks great. So very exciting. Okay, so it is about 3:45 and we can do 15 minutes of question and answer before we get into our next hour. So I saw one question in the chat, and this was for Aliki. In the XLS calculator tool, and if, by the way, if this is your question and I've somehow paraphrased in the wrong way, just feel free to hop on and correct me. But the gist, in the XLS calculator tool, are there cells to accommodate supplemental fuel types during peak heat load? When conditions where electric pumps are really not able to meet the heat load goal. I think I got that.
No, so the calculator assumes essentially it's going to calculate savings, assuming the heat pump is providing all the heating for the space.
Okay.
So again, we typically so for the Clean Heat Program, we're looking for projects that that can provide full load heating, especially in that what we call the custom category. One of the stipulations is that it is a full load heating heat pump. There are other categories that can use the TRM that do have lower incentives, that somebody who is maybe doing a partial load system, so a partial load mini split, they can qualify for that incentive. However, this calculator is specific to a certain category, our custom category, which calls for full load heating heat pumps. So it does not assume, or it does not consider supplemental heating consumption when it computes savings.
Okay. Okay. I hope that's a satisfactory answer. The next question that I did see, and I'm just going to throw that out to either Diana or Aliki. And what about conservation in buildings that are not yet ready for heat pumps? And surely if there's anyone, Harleen or anyone from NYSERDA who wants to jump in and answer that as well, I welcome you to just unmute yourselves. But Diana, I see you're unmuted.
Yeah, so I'm not sure I understand the question.
Okay, so let me go back, and the question came from John Cockerell. So John, if you want to maybe expand on that a little.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Yeah, there are a lot of buildings that aren't going to be able to be serviced by heat pumps. One, the expenses there. They have steam heat now, serving anywhere from 12 to 25 families. And conservation to me is the thing that is needed. And it's going to be a long time before these landlords are going to be able to invest in heat pumps. And I just wondered, I never hear anything but heat pumps and electricity, which seems to me to be an electricity marketing program. But there are buildings out there, thousands and thousands of them in New York and the suburban areas, that need conservation work. Piping insulation, better controls, radiator service. If we can reduce energy by 20 to 30%, we need less renewables, and less sized heat pumps. So I don't understand why that's not in the equation.
So actually, so ConEdison offers, we have what we call our core efficiency programs, and we have them set up for different market types. So there's a residential, small, single family home. There's a multifamily program. There's a small to medium business program, and then there is also a program that is targeted towards the commercial industrial market. And those core programs cover other energy efficiency measures. So that could be, maybe you're installing a more efficient AC, or you mentioned piping insulation. That's another measure. And ConEdison gives out rebates through these core programs. Again, it's going to be building dependent to which one you're going to apply to. And we do consider that. Specifically for the Clean Heat, the New York State Clean Heat Program, that program is specific towards heat pumps. The goal of that program is to incentivize customers across New York State to install heat pumps. But, I can speak for ConEdison, and I know that other utilities as well have other programs available for different types of energy efficiency upgrades that customers may be looking to, install.
Could you put in the chat some reference to those programs? Because frankly, I've never heard about them.
Yeah, sure. I can follow up with that.
Thank you very much.
And hey, Aliki, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
How you doing? It's nice to see your face. We've been in a lot of correspondence, but I don't think we've ever met even virtually. Antoine,
yeah.
with Wildan. So John, I'll put my email in the contact as well. I actually work with a company that manages the programs in the ConEd territory for small commercial facilities as well as multifamily facilities. I am not the right person to help you navigate those, but I would point you in the right direction. So I'd be happy to connect the dots there for you. Also, Aliki, I thought that would be an opportune moment to mention the new custom 4A incentive for envelope measures.
That's very true.
That probably speaks to what John is alluding to here. But you may be better equipped to navigate that. I could try.
Right, so for both of you or either of you, we do actually have a question about the 4A, the envelope 4A rate. So someone asked, how might we know if we qualify? And could results from like Comm Check be used to know? So that's a perfect segue.
That is a good segue. So let me do this then. Maybe I'll try to address John's question as an intro, and then Alika can do the heavy lifting, explaining how it actually works.
Sure.
So John, you know, that was a really good point, and it's not lost on us as program implementers, right, or managers. It's very much like solar, right? They say go and do the conservation first before you go and do install the panels, because likely a lot of the energy is being wasted and is more affordable to conserve. So the Con Ed and the utilities got that memo. And so what they've done is they've actually created a new offering within the Clean Heat Program that's called Incentive 4A, or I hear it often just referred to as the envelope incentive. And this is an incentive where for projects, Alika, again, correct me if I'm wrong, they have to be category 4 projects, right? So they have to qualify as category 4, which is full load heating over 65,000. But then you have to, prior to installing the heat pump, you have to do quote unquote substantial envelope improvements. And what would happen is you would see how big of a piece of equipment you needed prior to the envelope improvements, and then how much you were able to downsize it. And that delta, would also be incentivized essentially. It wouldn't just be the capacity of the new unit. And Alika, it sounds like, I'm not even exactly sure. Do you get the heightened incentive for the new unit and the envelope measures, or I guess how does the incentive actually play out? Because I know without envelope work, you get $200 in MMBTU, and with envelope work, you get double. You get $400.
Yes, yeah.
Wait, Aliki, before you answer also, because we've now moved on to the idea of the incentives, and Kevin Hernandez, who I saw has taken himself off incognito and is actually here. So he also asks about the idea that he wants to double check that envelope 4 in New York Sun incentives aren't actually considered double dipping, if you will. And he also questions whether or not the Clean Heat Program has experience with solar PV windows. So I just wanted to get a complete answer on all of that. Okay.
Thanks, Antoine, for giving that introduction. So as Antoine mentioned, basically, this was the other feedback that we got from the market. Originally, the program was geared only to heat pumps. We have expanded and created a new category incentive for those who are looking to install heat pumps plus do envelope upgrades, because we recognize that when you improve your building envelope, that means that your heat pump you're going to need a smaller system. So that benefits us. So we recognize that. We created a new category. In order to qualify for the category, we want to see a reduction in the load calculation. So your required building heating and cooling load, the envelope improvements, by instituting those envelope improvements, you would have to show us a load calc that is done, assuming that you've got either your standard code envelope and what the required heating and cooling loads would be for that, as compared to your required building heating and cooling loads compared to an envelope that has incorporated all of the envelope upgrades you're looking to install. And what we're looking for is that reduction in the heating and cooling loads. So your two load calculations are going to show that once you institute those envelope upgrades, your loads are going to decrease. Meaning your required heating system and cooling system it's going to be smaller. So when you show that, we essentially double the incentive, at least in the ConEdison territories. We allow you to tap into what we call this category 4A incentive, which is $400 per MMBTU saved. I will tell you that we are discussing in the next program manual update to create 2 tiers of envelope upgrades. So 2-tier incentives, because what we're looking to avoid is, if you're going to install a heat pump and you're just going to change out a window, that's not a significant, that's not a significant envelope upgrade. That's not really going to reduce your required heating and cooling loads. So, we don't want to give such a rich incentive if, you're not going to put in that significant envelope upgrade. So I hope I answered the question. There was a question about a Comm Check. So I think the Comm Check, what it does is it checks your envelope against code, and it tells you the savings, if I'm not mistaken. It doesn't necessarily tell you what your heating and cooling loads are. Like I said, in order to figure out if you qualify for category 4A, you're going to need to do 2 separate load calculations. Again, your load calculation, assuming the envelope that you're proposing to install, that's going to tell you, what your actual building loads are. And then you're going to do this counterfactual load calc, assuming a code minimum, R value and window to wall ratio. And we're going to look at those two load calcs, and we'll see that there's a reduction in loads. So that will allow you to tap into that envelope incentive.
Great. Thank you. If I can just ask a follow-up question to that. So for the Comm Checks, what they do is they say, like, yes, you are meeting the compliance standards for, I guess, for New York City would be like the New York City Energy Conservation Code. But then for, I think to some extent, I'm not sure what like level you can say, but I think you can say like it exceeds code by a certain amount. And so I think an easy way or a user-friendly way to have a 4A check in the future would be to kind of tie it to a Comm Check rating. So like you can say, I think I'm looking at a Comm Check right now for an envelope, and it's like there's an allowable margin percentage, and then there's like an envelope design percentage. And so I'm not sure if there's a way that in the future could be useful to kind of tie those to 4A incentive amounts or a 4A incentive qualification. I
will definitely look into that. I think my understanding of the Comm Check was I agree with you. It's basically above code, but I didn't realize that it necessarily would show loads, your required building loads. So I'll have to take a look at that.
Yeah, no. So it won't say like your building requires like some percentage of or like some number of MBH for like heating or cooling, but I think it does. I mean, it will like tell you like what level of code compliance you are at. So
right.
I guess that's one question there. And then I also had the question about the solar PV windows and the next one. If you've had a chance to read that.
So we actually, the envelope incentive upgrade is brand new. So we've had that out for about a month and a half. We haven't seen any projects that have come in with solar PV windows. It's definitely something that we'd be interested in looking into. And, again, the goal of the tying the envelope with the heat pump is, we recognize that you have a better building envelope. You're going to have less leakage. You're going to need a smaller heat pump system. So I don't see an issue with that type of upgrade. I think that would be a great way to, I guess, shore up your building envelope. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, I think it does. Because
I'm sorry. Go on.
Yeah, one quick thought. You know what's interesting, and I mean, heat pumps are a good example of this convergence between renewables and efficiency, right? I think what you're talking about now with the solar windows kind of evokes the same thought of convergence here. Now, I don't know 100% right what I'm about to suggest, but just from my experience, renewables and efficiency have been bifurcated within the efficiency program or within the program offerings, right? So there's usually been the solar programs separate from the efficiency programs. This is an interesting circumstance, though, where there's likely conservation benefits and generation benefits. So I don't know. I don't know exactly how that would get processed within ConEd. I'm not sure if Aliki, you would know, but what I'll tell you is I'm the new technology integration lead for the program. And so I'd be willing to go to bat for this if somebody wanted to go through the motions. In fact, I don't know if you guys see this in the chat, Scott Walker with Wex Energy, they have a window insulation panel. It's an insert that goes on the inside of the window and adds an R7 to the R.7 to the window. And what we did with them is we got their measure approved for the core program, for the standard efficiency conservation program. And there, once approved for that program, it was very easy to get them approved to also be eligible for clean heat. So potentially could do something similar with the window, the solar windows.
Yeah, because
Right?
at least in my experience. Oh, sorry.
No, go on.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. So in my experience I was working on some projects where we're doing we're looking at clean heat program incentives and also some NYSERDA projects. And so with heat pumps, like the community heat pump PON 4614. And so we were just making sure, because in the applications for the clean heat, it says that you're not applying for any other like New York State surcharge funded programs. So, but I've been told that it's okay to apply for multiple heat pump programs. And so, but just that maybe the envelope may or may not have that level of enthusiasm to say you can get as many incentives as you can, but that was the one little check had to double check for one of our projects.
Okay. So Aliki, can you drop your contact information in the chat if you haven't already, so that this way Kevin might be able to follow up again. And certainly I saw Anton has done so. And that Scott Walker has also done so, right? So I think we might be in good shape there. We did have, I think, one more question that I wanted to get to before
Maria,
we stop.
Oh, I'm sorry. Just before that, I just wanted to follow up here on Kevin's last comment. And it's funny, as soon as I interjected, I saw that I interrupted you and I lost my train of thought.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's okay. I'll give you a minute to grab your thought
Sure.
process.
We're talking about getting it into the programs. Oh yeah, the double dipping incentives. That's it. I'm sorry. So Kevin, I do want to flag that's a perilous road, my guy. That double dipping is a real concern, right? Now, what I'll mention, I'll give you an example of times we worked with RTEM, Real-Time Energy Management, and ConEd, right? And you just got to sort of understand what exactly everybody's incentivizing. ConEd doesn't incentivize, for example, the analytics that goes along with an EMS system or the software components, where they do incentivize the hardware. So, what we did for an RTEM program is we incentivize all the hardware cost through the ConEd side, right, and attributed the energy savings to that, and then all the software, ongoing support and analytics, that was covered by NYSERDA. So yeah, just to say that I'm sure if you looked at the details, right, of what they're each incentivizing, right, there may be overlap on what systems you're looking at, but they may be actually incentivizing different aspects of the work. So, but yeah, I would still be wary though, because that is, as I'm sure everybody knows, that's a big faux pas, right? The double dipping.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, Maria, go ahead.
No, that's okay. So I did want to make sure that we covered all of the questions in the chat before we moved on. So there is a question that asks, what assistance will there be to navigate the building permit process in cities like Yonkers, as an example? Anyone want to take that?
That was actually a question for the roundtable, I think, Maria.
Okay, so we'll hold on to that.
So what I will
Okay.
do is, yeah, we
So-
should hold on to that for a while.
Okay, we'll hold on to that. So what I think I'm going to do now, if there are no more specific questions for either Diana or ConEd, Aliki and Anton, we'll move on, but I see Anton's raising his hand.
Oh, well, yeah, no, I
have
don't know that we can speak to the assistance that's provided on navigating this. But I guess I am curious, Aliki, because I'm not directly involved in the Clean Heat Program, but I've heard a lot of back and forth on the question of permits as a formal requirement, right? So are permits required for every project, or are there times they're not required, below or above certain sizes? Could you just high level provide a clarity on that?
Yeah, so it's going to be dependent on the program that you apply to. So I know in the ConEdison territory are bigger programs. So multifamily, commercial, industrial. For example, we do request to see the permits. One important thing to note, so typically the baselines that we compare the heat pump energy usage to, we typically compare the heat pump to a minimally code compliant system, cooling AC system, and let's say boiler. But what we know with the 2020 energy code is with these larger, specifically for any buildings that fall into the commercial code, there are actually additional energy efficiency package requirements that, depending on which way you select to comply with that portion of the energy code and the way you decide to submit your project to the building department, you may actually have to provide a more efficient heat pump or more efficient HVAC system greater than the efficiencies that are in code. And what that does is it basically means that, let's say if you go to the energy code right now and you look up the minimum efficiency of a boiler, usually it's around 80%. If you opt to follow the 2020 energy code, commercial code, and you say that you're following this compliance pathway to submit to the Department of Buildings, and you say that you're going to install more efficient HVAC, it actually means that you should be installing a system that is not 80% efficient. It's actually it's 10% above that. So it's 88% efficient. So what that means is for us is there's less savings because now you're comparing the heat pump to not a boiler at 80% efficiency. You're comparing a heat pump to a boiler at 88% efficiency. So the savings are less and you get less incentive. So that's why it's important for us, as specifically with the larger building types, because the commercial code actually has this caveat built in that says that if you are designing a system and you choose to comply with this compliance path, this more efficient HVAC compliance path, your minimum code compliant equipment isn't just that efficiency that you grabbed from that table. It's that efficiency plus 10%, which is going to translate to you to this heat pump program. It's going to translate to less savings. It's going to tweak your baseline to be that more efficient boiler, if that makes any sense to you guys. But I guess the short and sweet answer is yes, it's going to be dependent on the program that we're looking for. Usually we ask to see the EN drawings. So these are the energy drawings, typically that has the Comm Check or Res Check on it. And then it will typically include some type of equipment schedule and show you, sometimes there's like a mechanical heating plan showing the heat pumps. So that's generally what we request to be submitted at the final design stage.
Okay, I'm going to jump in with one last question. And then there's, so Khalid has two questions really. And one I see as a specific question for this part. And the other I think might be an interesting topic for our roundtable. And with, everyone else who was here has also come to the event with the opportunity to introduce themselves and put an agenda item on. So let's make this, if we can, please, the last question specific here. And the question is, do you have energy storage incentives for air to water heat pumps that can be used to store heats and supplemental fuels or not in the tool to reduce heat pump size?
To reduce heat pump size, air to water heat. So air to water heat pumps, we do have incentives for. you can't use the tool. Right now, the tool is programmed with certain heat pump technologies. In the future, we are looking to add additional, technologies and additional features. I will tell you, though, that air to water heat pumps, we would incentivize through the program. So you can definitely, if that's what you're looking to install. I guess I'm not sure. It says that can be used to store heat since supplemental fuels. Is the air to water heat pump?
Yeah, I can explain that. I'm actually talking about incentivizing a thermal energy storage tank to be able to supplement, reduce the heating load during peak heat conditions. So instead of putting, let's say, a 5-ton heat pump, you put a 4-ton, and hopefully that 1 ton would come from thermal storage. I'm just concerned about 100% conversions that would overstress the grid. So I'm talking about the storage tank incentives, how many dollars per 1,000 gallons or something like that.
So we have domestic hot water heating incentives. So, I mean, that could potentially, depending on the application of your heat pump, that could potentially be used. But if it's just a thermal storage system, we don't have, currently that's not built into the program. So
yeah, that's not domestic hot water. That's definitely to reduce, to help meet the building heat load.
Right.
And so I do know that also bridges us into a broader topic. So why don't we hold on to that broader topic? And it's all, of course, tied to overstressing the grid and the decommissioned Indian Point. So I'm going to ask Harleen to stop recording now, because we will also give the floor over to everyone to take about 30 seconds to introduce themselves and maybe offer up another topic for the remaining 45 minutes of our time together. I think we have the topic of overstressing the grid and Indian Point right now. And certainly what Harleen suggested earlier was the topic of providing, it was suggested in the chat rather, assistance to see that maybe, oh, what?